manufacturing industry has experienced, significant changes in recent years on the back of Industry 4.0 and smart factories. Nowadays, businesses are primarily focused on integrating connected devices and hyper-converged infrastructure to handle modern workloads. However, this technological advancement has led to a complex IT landscape, and we all understand and appreciate that the more advent of technology, the more complex it starts getting, making it challenging to measure and control the total cost of ownership, as we say, TCO. So, Shriji, tell us, how do you handle the influx of data from various sources into your data center?
Yeah. Now, I mean, this is one of the biggest challenges that we deal with. I mean, there are different parts to the challenge. One is when we deal with a front-end business case like what we do in our cardiovascular diabetes care business, where patients are being monitored, they are on devices, and that data is collected on a very high frequency, and it gets pushed back to the back end, which is a serious influx of data that we will get. And depending on the manufacturer of the device, whether it is a heart monitor or breathing monitor or medical pill compliance intake monitoring, the format and all those things are different as well. So we need to make sure that all of that is normalized and it is getting into our data lake or database where we want to then further do the analysis. And in this case, it's very, very time critical. So for example, so high fast transportation mechanism, flash storage kind of devices along with the hard disk that we have, so that it can compute very fast, and then it can push the data back through the channels to the mobile device or tab or whichever alerting mechanism that we'll have to the corresponding stakeholder that will receive. So that's one set of challenge that we deal with. So here it is not just about the application or it is not just about the data velocity, but it is also supporting that with the necessary infrastructure which will be underlying, which will aid the speed of the process. Now, if you look at manufacturing kind of data, there we are not yet in a position where we are in a closed loop like in the other case. We are collecting data. It goes through historian database, Kepware databases, MES data, LIMS data, ERP data. All those are coming into different platforms. In some cases, it goes into industrial IoT platform, which is local to the site. Some data will go to the data lake, which will be used for overnight analytics kind of thing. Industrial IoT platform is used for immediate analysis there, so that we can actually alert the operator or a quality guy or whoever we need to alert, so that that is nearer the source. So here again the challenges are different. In the industrial IoT, we have taken the industrial IoT platform to the edge to avoid data traveling all the way and coming back. So it is a local area network that we need to manage. Whereas when it comes to the data lake, it needs to be coming to the cloud, where it is then going into a joint database. It is getting into the models that we have and the algorithm runs. So there is a time that we plan for that, which happens overnight, and then it flushes out performance dashboard, or it flushes out opportunities to improve the yield, or flag a preventive maintenance activity that needs to take on, and so on and so forth. So the influx of data is managed depending on the scenario that we are trying to deal with, and we deal with at a application level, database level, transport layer, and infra layer.
Excellent. Thanks for that, Sri. So moving on, tell us, how important is the TCO for your infrastructure in this data-intensive world?
Technology advancements are so quick that we have to keep modernizing, whether we like it or not. So while we take advantage of all the modern technologies like OpenAI or AI or ML or whatever it is, we have to extract money out of our existing investments, my existing budgets, to fund what we want to do. So that is how important TCO is.
Absolutely. TCO is very critical.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So we'd also appreciate, Shriji, if you could tell us, in terms of sharing your experience in building a solid data center ecosystem, and provide some proven practices that other businesses can adopt.
Yeah, and we have now moved to a new colo facility as well from our old setup. But I can definitely share whatever we have done in this space. there are multiple considerations that we go through when we talk about data center. So what I just mentioned, it starts with the actual facility itself. How much area do we need? How many racks do we need? Are we going to employ the right cooling mechanism, the hot aisle, cool aisle setup?
Right.
Are we circulating it back? All those kind of physical aspects is one. Second is the security aspects, which is very, very high in the agenda. And there are multiple levels of security. That one is the access. Who is actually getting access?
Got it.
Who has permanent access? Who is given temporary access based on the need? How do we manage that? And then the cyber security. There we employ multiple levels of, starting from the server to network to switches, to multiple levels. We have strategies that we deploy to manage these different levels of security requirements. And then we also have to decide what, there are uptime standards depending on the tiering that we want. We have to decide whether we want a tier 1, 2, 3, 4 sort of data center. There are multiple standards that needs to be followed for this.
Correct.
Here you have to decide whether you want 100% redundancy, or all those different resilience aspects that you have to build, and the compliance aspect that you have to build. There you decide. Usually we all go for a tier 4 or 3 now, right?
True.
I mean, at minimum tier 3, but we have gone for a tier 4 setup. We have a primary and a secondary setup, and that's how we manage it. Then the aspect that we look at it is, it is not just one geography that we are trying to manage. While we bring the workloads of a certain geography into a particular setup, can we do that in a scalable manner? If I want to bring in workloads in Latin America or Europe or South Africa or wherever it is that a setup giving me the right scalability? And this is where the private cloud aspect is very attractive for us. Because we being a life science and pharma company, it's very important that we don't forget about the compliance and the regulatory requirements that we have, and hence we want a better control over this. And there are providers out there in the market now who provides a layer where you can provision workloads in the private cloud, but also through that same mechanism you can provision in the cloud also, in the hyperscaler cloud also. So that means you have one window where you have visibility and observability of all the workloads that you are running across the different public and private cloud, and you are able to manage the cost accordingly. So this is another aspect that I would encourage people to think when you are looking at your data center setup. Do not treat it separately to a cloud. Make a mechanism where you can manage the entire spend and workloads and performance and everything through one dashboard.
Infrastructure requirements, vary. Manufacturing companies require a unique security policy to protect the transfer of crucial information from factories to central offices. Now, many businesses utilize edge computing to address connectivity challenges in remote locations before transmitting data to the cloud or data centers. Creating a security strategy that encompasses all endpoints in data centers and provides protection even when network connectivity is unavailable can pose a bit of a difficulty or some challenges around that. So we'd like to understand from you your approach to designing such a strategy in a manufacturing process.
Yeah, I mean, what we do here is there are different levels again, right? There is endpoint as you talked about, and when we talk about manufacturing, this is not just IT, this is OT as well.
Right.
Now the challenge in OT is that there are a lot of OEM devices where the embedded softwares and the operating systems that they use are outdated. And they have not manufactured the OEM devices in such a way that the software is upgradable. So this is one aspect which is a big topic in my mind to address from a security point of view. Now when we are in the digital transformation journey, we are connecting more and more machines and instruments, and that data is getting in. So here, segmentation of the network, this is going to be very, very crucial, so that a particular set of instruments and machines is in a particular network and it connects to a certain database. It could be IoT platform or Historian or Kepware, and that's it. There is no more interference into that area. If for maintenance, some external vendor needs to connect. We provide temporary connections whenever needed. Okay. The other aspect that we try and take care is something called tiering of our directory.
Mhm.
So that's another concept that we follow. I'm not going to get into too much detail there.
Sure.
Then the EDRs and the XDRs, so that there is constant data coming into our SIEM layer,
Mhm.
which also then combined with network perimeter security data that we get
Mhm.
from switches and routers and all those things. There the correlation happens,
Mhm.
and the correlation flushes out alerts.
Got it.
And here then you look at false positive, true positive, etc., and filter out, and there is an action that gets suggested to the SOC. The SOC then reaches out to the different stakeholders.
Mhm.
Sometimes it is very urgent, so action follows before calling.
Mhm.
Otherwise, calling happens and then action follows. That's how things are taken care of. So that's the way we manage this, and there are different kinds of tool sets that we use, organizational layers that we use.
Sure.
It's a 24/7 game that we have to play. Yeah.
Absolutely. So, Shriji, tell us, lastly, do you foresee that confidential computing could be a potential solution to all these challenges?
Yeah, I mean, at least selectively for certain requirements, we will have to do that. And sort of already we're trying to play a little bit around this idea. How do you do that? Without exposing your jewels
Got it.
beyond a certain limit.
Yes.
So that's going on.
Excellent.
And yeah.
Excellent.